It is time to plant your garden, and so you're probably asking yourself, should I start with seeds or should I go to the store and buy some plants? Well, today I'm going to answer that question for you on the Grow Yourself podcast. If we haven't met yet, my name is Nicole Johnsey-Burke. I'm the founder of Gardenary Incorporated. We're on a mission to help you start your garden, make your garden better, and just make the garden an ordinary part of your life. And that comes down to seeds and plants. So I have talked to so many students over the years and clients, and I get asked this question so very often. Do I go to the seed catalog and just order a ton of seeds? Or should I go to the plant shop and buy a ton of plants? Well, today I'm going to help you understand the answer, and it's a little bit more complicated than just saying seeds or plants. So first off, I want to explain my plant labeling system. You'll find it in my second book called Leaves, Roots, and Fruit, and that in itself is the plant labeling system. Leaves and roots and fruit. So in this book and inside of Gardenary, we explain how you can basically categorize plants based on their stage of growth. So if you think about way back to third grade science, right? Life science maybe, where you learned about the way a plant grows, we all figured out that a plant goes from a seed. It creates a little small root and a little shoot, and then it grows lots and lots of leaves, right? And as it's growing those leaves, it starts to build bigger root systems, and it will start to get pretty nice thick roots. And then once the plant is fully established, it's got its leaves, it's got its nice thick roots, then it's going to produce flowers and fruit. And so if you were to look at the life cycle of a plant, you're going to see leaves come first, roots come second, and then flowers and fruit come last. And that in itself is the answer to whether or not you're going to start a plant with seeds or with a plant. And I'll explain to you how. When you think about the plant you're going to be growing in the garden, are you going to be harvesting the leaves? Is the main production from that plant going to be leaves? So a couple of examples. If we're in a cool season, the leaves we might harvest would be arugula or romaine or buttercrunch or spring mix. We might have cabbage or kale or Swiss chard. We might be growing cilantro or dill or parsley. We might have some chives, some green onions. All those are considered leaves, right? It's the green thing that we're going to cut and enjoy inside our kitchen. So anything that you're going to grow for the leaf itself, we're going to consider that in its first category, in that first category of plants. And for those, in general, we want to start them with a seed that goes directly into the soil. The reason why we want to do this is because most of these plants will actually do best if they're started from seed. So a lot of these plants, especially your leafy greens, they have very tender root systems, and they don't make the transition very well from a pot or a little starter position moving into the garden. Instead, their roots like to stay exactly where they start. And so in general, we'll stress out these plants less. But also, it works to plant directly from seed because most of these plants grow in a very short period of time. If you think about it, we're capturing the harvest for this plant at the earliest stage of its growth, right? When you're harvesting a plant for its leaf, you're literally catching it in its baby and childhood stages of growth. And so you have plenty of time to get to the harvest, even if you're planting in the middle of the season. So the perennial herbs are the one exception to whether or not you should buy a seed or a plant when it's in the leaf category. So if you're harvesting leaves in the cool season, you've got all your lettuces, you've got cilantro and parsley and dill. In the warm season, you've got your bigger greens like kale and Swiss chard. You've got basil, but then you've got your herbs, and those perennial herbs, we're going to switch it and buy plants for those. Now, the next stage of growth for the plant, we've passed the leafy stage. Now the plant is starting to produce roots. For those plants that produce roots in general, especially all of the ones that produce roots within 2 to 3 months, we also want to start from seed. And that's because most of these are very similar to those leafy greens in that they don't like being moved. If you think about growing a radish or a beet or a carrot, it would be a pretty tender thing, right? To pull that out of a starter pack or out of a pot and put it into a bigger garden. That plant is going to struggle with like resettling itself because putting its root down into the soil, attaching it to the soil and pulling nutrients from the soil is literally the way that that root is becoming big and strong and harvestable. And so in general, for all those annual root crops, those ones that are 2 to 3 months, it generally works best to plant directly with a seed. Now, there are plants that I categorize as roots, but they're actually more like tubers or bulbs. And that would be things like garlic and potatoes and sweet potatoes, ginger, turmeric. These you could start, we're still generally calling it a seed, but the seed is a little bit different. The seed is going to be like a little bulb or a little a clove. So it would be like a clove of garlic or a little hand of ginger or turmeric. And so for those as well, I wouldn't buy a whole plant. I would just buy the piece that you'll put under the ground to start that plant growing. So for the root crops in general, almost all root crops, I would start them from seed or from the original tuber or clove. And you're going to get great results. You're going to have plants that aren't going to be stressed out. And in general, it's just really not worth purchasing a plant. So now we've covered the leafy plants, then the root crops. Then we move on to the final stage of the plant's growth. And that's when it produces flowers and fruit. So these are the plants, no matter the season, that in general we're going to buy plants for. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, if you're entering a new season, you haven't planned ahead, you're not a month or two ahead of the game, then you're going to be purchasing plants for these because you need these plants to get going very quickly, because these are the plants that we're taking all the way to fruition, right? We're taking them all the way to the very end of their life cycle, and we're harvesting them not for the leaves, not for the roots, but for the fruit. So in a cool season time, that's going to be things like sugar snap peas and fava beans. And in a warm season time, that's going to be things like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants, zucchini, squash. So for the plants that are going to be fruiting plants where we're harvesting the fruit from those plants, generally speaking, we want to start with a plant. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, and that would be in the cool season in general, any kind of pea plant or bean plant, I start from seed because they do really well from seed and you can get way more for your money. Plus, sometimes those plants have a hard time transplanting. So for peas and fava beans in the cool season, and then just bush beans or pole beans in the warm season, I would start from seed. And then also all the plants in general in the cucurbit family, the squash plant family, especially cucumber. So that covers our leaves, our roots, and our fruit. In general, the overall rule, there's some exception. Leaves are going to be started from seed, roots are going to be started from seed, and then fruit is going to be started from plant. Another way to think about it is small, medium, and large. The small and medium sized plants can be started from seed, and the large sized plants should be started from plant. Now, it could be a plant you grew yourself. It could be a plant that you started indoors, grew to be a nice mature plant, and then you put it out into the garden, or it can be one that you buy. But in general, when we're growing for the fruit, we're looking at 70, 90, 100 days before we get to the fruit. So we want to give ourselves a jump start by putting that plant directly into the garden. Now, the other two categories, and I already touched on one, which is the perennial herbs. The herbs and the flowers, those kind of are in their own category in the garden, especially for the Gardenary way. So there you have it. That is my system. When I'm trying to decide, should I buy the seed or should I get the plant? I think about its category. Is it a leaf, root, fruit, herb, or flower? You don't have to be confused when it comes to setting up your own garden. We have got all the resources you need here at Gardenary. You can check out the link right below this video. We've got a free resource to help you grow to the next level, and you can check us out more at gardenary.com. Don't forget to subscribe and tell me below in the comments if any one of these plants or seeds was a surprise to you, that you've been buying the plant all along, you didn't know you could have bought the seed instead. I cannot wait to see the seeds and plant you put in your garden this season, and I especially cannot wait to see you right here next time. Thanks for listening and watching the Grow Yourself podcast. I'll see you in the garden.